Hey guys, we're back with an Exploring World History lesson number 3, and its title is Your Place in the World. So, where is your place in the world? And the world is a big place, but also it's a small place, okay? And I'll try to explain that as we go through. They talk about 5 questions you can connect any stranger to something in your life, and but it really does start with you. Okay, you're a distinct individual person. I'm a distinct individual person, and we all have unique attributes and things about us. Okay, but most of us, probably none of you, actually live by yourselves, right? So think about who you live with. You live with your immediate family, maybe. You have brothers or sisters, or mom and dad. I have children that live with me. Um, then you have an extended family, right? Cousins and aunts and uncles. Then you have friends. And so your network starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger as you start thinking about that, right? So even though you're an individual person, you're just one person in this world. The more we grow, the more people and friends we have, the more family we have, the bigger our world gets. Um, and so that goes true for not only individuals, but also where you live. Okay. Think about where you live. Start with, do you live in a house? Do you live in an apartment? Do you live on a farm? All things that will affect your life, correct? Do you live in a city? Do you live in the country? What state do you live in? Do you live in the United States even? And all these things can affect you and have different connections to these places. Just kind of give you a little bit of an example, okay? I currently live in Florida. I lived in Tennessee for a very long time, have friends in Tennessee. I grew up in Michigan. I travel to those places, all 3 of those places, on a regular basis. I lived overseas in Okinawa, Japan for a while. I have friends who are in the military, and I have friends literally all over the world. So when there's a hurricane that's coming right now to Florida, it affects me and it affects some of my friends. When there is problems in California with fires and things, that affects some of my friends. So all of these things are connected via my personal groups and friends and things like that. So it's important to be able to be aware of those, and that will happen with you as well. You may have family that live outside of your immediate area. You may have friends that live other places. So we start to get connections to the world and to understanding some more about the history. And then we have, we talked about in other lessons, these strands of things that occur in history that make these places even more unique, more interesting, and that affect us. So some of the things in our everyday life that we may or may not be aware of that affects us and puts us into this global world. Remember, I talked about the world's a big place. Try traveling it. When I told you I lived in Japan, it took 14 and a half hours on a plane to get there. A very large place, right? But also a very small place because it does affect us. So let's think about just the food you eat. Where does the food that you eat come from? Most of us, probably aren't living on a farm growing our own food, everything that we need. At a minimum, our food comes from the United States, right? Different places across the U.S. that the farms um, produce and the farmers are growing for us. Different, whether it's chicken and beef or corn or wheat. We go to the grocery store, we get these places. Just, check it out, look at it next time you're there. Just see, where the different places come from. But also a lot of our stuff's come from, go to the bananas. Look at your bananas and you'll see them, from lots of different places. Also, our clothes. Our clothes come from many different places. China is a big producer of some of our clothes. Other places in Asia and things. So, and then electronics. Everybody has a phone, I'm sure. If you don't, then you're a really unique person. But most of us have phones, and the phone itself probably comes from, and the parts that make up the phone probably come from a dozen different places in the world. So our world really is connected, and it's something we need to pay attention to. But the other thing we need to pay attention to is because we get very caught up in a Western civilization world, and it's not. It is not a Western civilization world. Okay, Western civilization basically has its roots in the ancient Greece and Rome. A lot of influence from the Old Testament, and primarily Western European, okay? Western European and America and people who came from Western Europe. And that's this Western civilization world. It has a lot of emphasis on and different beliefs in the God of Israel, a rule of law, the value of individualism, the importance of education, and that we're headed towards a final day of reckoning. And these are all things that are kind of encompassed in a Western civilization world. But we don't live in a Western civilization world, okay? There's a lot of non-Western civilization people and a lot of the world that is not Western civilization, okay, as we would call it. All of Africa, all of Asia, the Middle East, not a Western civilization world, okay? Even though they may in our global world have some, what we might call Western civilization influence, but it's not a Western civilization world. They are predominantly influenced by Islam and has grown significantly over the last few years. They have a lot of major trends that go through history through this area. And we just need to kind of make sure we realize that there are other parts than just America, just our Western civilization viewpoint. And with all that being said, though, I'm going to bring it back because what we are going to study mostly is a Western civilization kind of focus, okay? So with that being said, make sure that we continue to look globally, even though we're going to be a little more centrist in the Western civilization. Thanks.